it's really well known in Tibetan Buddhism. Because it's talking about bodhicitta, and what a bodhisattva develops. Yeah, I thought of doing it because some of you went to India recently and you were like I saw some Tibetan people, so it just came to mind. Maybe it's a good thing to do. But and I first picked up that text when I first went to India. Really terrible translation, but it didn't matter. There are lots of translations. I have one by Stephen Batchelor, which is pretty good, and I'm going to give everybody a page. So please take a page, and while it's going around, I'll give the context a little bit. Now, I'll tell you a bit about the book. So, there should be enough for everyone to have a copy. Now, Shantideva was a monk, an Indian monk, in a big university called Nalanda, which had at least 10,000 monks. It was sort of the peak of Buddhist India at that time.
We were also in Nalanda.
Oh yeah? Probably wasn't much to see.
Well, the ruins of
the ruins of Nalanda.
Yeah, and a museum.
Nice. What's that? Oh, you got something else mixed in there? Oh really? You got something else? Okay. That's interesting. Wait, so here's the other ones. Here's the right ones. Give me the wrong ones back for recycling. Nice. It's another class about the history of the camera. Maybe it would be preferable. So, does everyone have the right sheet? Good. But as legend goes about Shantideva, he was not a very diligent monk. He was a slacker, as we say. Kind of like Layman Pang, in a sense. It's like the Indian Layman Pang, they say. His co-monk said that he had the three enlightened qualities of activities of eating, sleeping, and using the toilet. Those are like the three activities he spent most of his time doing. And and then, of course, as he was challenged that he had to give to show that he wasn't totally wasting his time by giving a talk to the whole assembly of monks, which is a pretty daunting task to consider, meaning he was nervous. And the time came, and he went to the podium, and out came this 100-page text is what he delivered, right? The Bodhisattva way of life. And what it is whether that really happened or not, who knows? But it's a good story. Sometimes, I guess what's informative for us about that story and some of these legends is that sometimes, all of our efforts, when we think we're really, they're really going to get us somewhere, it's vanity, right? It's vanity to think that, I can push wisdom, I can make wisdom happen. Because sometimes, I just have to let wisdom reveal itself. So Shantideva is a good example of that. As is Layman Pang. Now, This text is divided in a certain way. There are 10 chapters, and the first 3 chapters talk about basically how amazingly wonderful bodhicitta is, and how it's a really worthwhile thing to invite into your consciousness. That you should appreciate bodhicitta, which means we should discuss for one moment, bodhicitta? What is bodhicitta? And bodhisattva. So a bodhisattva, bodhi means enlightened or awakened, like Buddha is an awakened being, and bodhi is an awakened mind. Citta is mind, heart mind though. So it's kind of your awareness, your consciousness, your sense of being is awakened, right? Awakened to what? Well, here the text explains it really clearly in no uncertain terms, that you're awakened to devoting your life to the benefit of others, to relieving all beings' suffering. That what motivates you most is ending suffering for all sentient beings. That is your greatest aspiration. Your strongest intention is to serve all others, to end suffering, including yourself. You're one of those beings, right? But that motivates you the most. How distant that can seem. Yes, that's why this text was given, because it's an acknowledgement that this is a far, that's a rare thought. He says this in the text. It is a rare thought to have. When you really truly feel inspired that your life is driven for the sake of all others, that's really why you're here. Yes, it's rare in an authentic way. We can read the text, we can contemplate it on it, and it can be an intellectual understanding, but to really have your heart awakened to the fact that, yeah, this gives my life ultimate meaning, that's rare, okay? And when it happens, you should appreciate it and invite it more into your life. And this book is a way of saying, yes, this is a path to follow. It's not a destination, you don't just have it. It's something you need to encourage, you need to open to. You need to open to that sense of connectedness, that sense of true inspiration. We may find certain people inspiring, people who have succeeded in their lives in different ways, But when you think about what is the greatest inspiration, it's those who are really selfless, selflessness. I mean, people who achieve and earn a lot of money and are great successes in their individual pursuit. That's inspiring to a certain degree. The devotion, dedication, the energy, the talent, the work, the grit, all of that. But then when we compare it to like a saint, whatever a saint is, somebody who devotes their lives to serving others, and there's no comparison. When you look deeply in your heart, and this text is reminding us that. It's reminding us what truly motivates you. When you pause and you say, what really gives my life meaning? This is the deep question this text is asking us to reflect. And when you have that moment of awakening, this is, yeah, it really is when I can be of the greatest help. What kind of help? To end others' pain, including my own. To end suffering and increase joy. That is the greatest thing. That is the greatest thing. We'll see that in the text. And he says in different ways. So how is it divided? There's the first 3 chapters is like bodhicitta, meaning awakening your mind to that intention. That's what bodhicitta is. It's your mind, your consciousness, that is starting to realize that deep motivation in life, that drive, okay, that meaning, that purpose. Wow, you start to invite that purpose in your life, and it actually doesn't matter what job you are in, that purpose then fulfills it, okay? Whatever activity you're doing, when you invite that motivation into it, it suddenly becomes an enlightened activity, right? Because your motivation is not just self-serving. You can then be enjoying your meal alone in a restaurant, really liking the colors and the food and the taste. And then when you add the intention that, and this is giving me energy to really benefit all others. Wow, that meal suddenly is ambrosia, right? I mean, it has, you know, exponentially increased in value. It's not just a mental game. It really is your heart mind that is realizing that connectedness in everything you do. But we need to practice that. Because there are a lot of forces saying, you know, look out for yourself. You know, the world's going to hell. Get what you can out of it. Okay? We have the teachers to help us on this way. Guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. Bodhisattva is the awakened being who chooses to devote her life to this cause, the great cause of ending suffering. And bodhicitta is the mind of the Bodhisattva. So that's what we're trying to cultivate in ourselves. Bodhicitta again and again. You know, wake up, fall asleep, wake up, fall asleep, wake up, fall asleep. And the practice is just like with mindfulness. I'm distracted, I'm here. I'm distracted, I'm here. I'm selfish, I'm giving. I'm selfish, I'm giving. Right? Just notice when you're coming back to your self-centeredness, saying, you know, what a game. What an illusion. What a trap. Right? I don't want to be in this narrowness so much. Okay. So just recognize when that's happening again, and I'm pulling back to like this small place. I breathe and I say, okay, yeah, I recognize that small place. And I'm not defined by it. I'm not limited by this. Bodhicitta is a reality. But I need to remind myself often. Practice is reminding. Now, I want to relate this a little bit to meditation. I talked about last night. Is that, you know, mindfulness is, you know, a fantastic practice. But if it's just about being present without bodhicitta, it's selfish. Okay? Your mindfulness practice can be self-centered. Like, I want to be more present to really experience. Why? You know, like, so what? Great. I mean, go on a ski trip. I mean, you'll have a great time. You'll be really there. Otherwise, you'll break your neck. But that's self-centeredness. Okay? You're having fun. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Go on your ski trip. But if you want to develop your mindfulness and meditation practice, it's not just about having a more intense colors in your life and experience, right? But it's about inviting bodhicitta into that life, into that activity. Not just that you're more present, but your presence is less selfish and more connected. That's bodhicitta. Right? That's why we need to, you know, study these texts and contemplate and to practice bodhicitta, awakening, awakened heart, realizing your truest motivations, your greatest intentions, right? Being present is a beginning, okay? But compassion is the path. So, this text helps us with that, helps remind us that real essential. Now, I just took a few excerpts from the first 3 chapters. I want to read them with you. You'll see what it says. In chapter 1, leisure and endowment are very hard to find. And since they accomplish what is meaningful for man, if I do not take advantage of them now, how will such a perfect opportunity come about again? Just as a flash of lightning on a dark, cloudy night for an instant brightly illuminates all, likewise in this world, through the might of Buddha, a wholesome thought rarely and briefly appears. So these 2 verses are opening us to a very basic consideration, and that is leisure and endowment are hard to find. If you're here, you have leisure time. Okay? And if you can understand what I'm saying, you have mental and physical endowment. Meaning, you have the ability to understand the teachings and to be motivated by them, and you have the time to do it. That's the leisure and endowment. Leisure is you got the time, endowment, you have the skills. So you have what you need. And don't take it for granted, because one day you may not. So, if you have it, take advantage of this opportunity, that's what this is saying. It's hard to find, believe me. You go around the world, you go traveling, most people are working really hard, right? Just to get by. And you have leisure endowment to cultivate bodhicitta. Don't postpone this opportunity. It may not come again for a long time. And this is a flash of lightning on a dark, cloudy night. You know, a flash of lightning is often to symbolize the impermanence of life. Things come, they go. Okay? But what is impermanent here? What is so impermanent here? That thought of bodhicitta, the thought of compassion, the really selfless thought, that motivation. You know, it comes and it goes, right? It comes and it goes. A wholesome thought rarely and briefly appears. You know, that those real thoughts of goodness, compassion, kindness. You know, most of the day, if you were to put on a scale like self-centered thoughts, wholesome and generous thoughts, which would be heavier? Okay? It's pretty rare, but we can start to like balance it a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, now that's our job. Okay, otherwise you're lost, and the world's lost. So a little bit of balance here. It's pretty rare, but you can do it. Collect the ones that you find. In brief, this is 15. The awakening mind should be understood to be of two types: the mind that aspires to awaken, and the mind that ventures to do so. As is understood by the distinction between aspiring to go and actually going, so the wise understand in turn the distinction between these two. Yes, this is a good distinction. You know, sometimes we sit in meditation and we think, yeah, I'm developing something. And then you get up off your seat and it's like back to zero. Okay? So there's the aspiring. Yeah, I mean, this is an inspiring thought. Like, this teaching is so inspiring. You know, I'm really inspired by this. Yeah, that's good. That's good. But understand the difference between being inspired and venturing forth. You know? And actually cultivating in your life when it's not so easy, when you forget a lot. Okay? When you're hearing like a nice talk, it's easy to be inspired. Yeah, bodhicitta. But as we see here, you know, and the mind that ventures to do so, okay, the wise know the difference between wanting to go and going. Between, you know, being inspired by bodhicitta, selflessness, connectedness, compassion, and actually cultivating it when you're faced with a difficult situation. That is the venturing, that is the going forth, right? Go forth. So, experiment with that. You know, enjoy the inspiration, but venture forth. Go forward and actually, you know, go out the door and see what you can do. And then come back again, sit every day, read the teachings, join a group. All that is for strengthening your inspiration. But the going forth is when you go out the door. Okay? And they're essential. Both are essential. Right? If even the thought to relieve, this is in 21, if even the thought to relieve living creatures of merely a headache is a beneficial intention, endowed with infinite goodness, then what need is there to mention the wish to dispel their inconceivable misery, wishing every single one of them to realize balanced good qualities? Here, this is quite inspiring. I find this very helpful. And like sometimes we think, how am I going to practice bodhicitta so big? How am I going to save all sentient beings? You know, somebody has a headache. Jeez, I'm sorry. I hope it goes away. That's also infinite goodness, right? We don't have to, you know, wait until there's a catastrophe. Life has enough around us to just practice compassion and bodhicitta, to awaken to the suffering of others in all of their myriad forms, because there are so many different forms. And sometimes it's just like, yeah, I lost my keys, can't find my keys. Well, here, let me help you. You know, I'm sorry about that. You know? I mean, there can all these, you know, common opportunities to practice bodhicitta, of just getting outside of yourself and helping relieve the suffering of somebody else. You know? If you can, if you have the leisure and endowment, if you have the time and the skill, venture. Do it. Go forth. Right? That's the practice. Notice it. Awaken. Look for suffering. You won't have to look very far. Okay? You want to say something?
Yeah, it's remind me an example by Ajahn Chah that's really influenced me. I read it so many times, and then like in the summer it really touched me. He's talking about giving, about dana, and he's giving examples of like trying to feel other people. And you know, in Ajahn Chah style, he's very down to earth. So he said, okay, you have 2 apples and you want to give your friend, right? All of us want to give to our friend, but which apple will give him? The big one or the small one? And it's like, which one will give?
Yeah.
So, small things, but it's...
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's always the details. You know, there's no like big problem to solve. There's a whole bunch of small problems that add up, right? One after another. You know, it's the other way like that Mother Teresa said. There's no great acts of love. There's small acts of great love. So there's no big problem to solve. There's a bunch of small problems that need our attention, right? And you just, identify them one after another, and then you see that they collect to solve maybe a bigger problem, but not by aiming at the big problem. So yeah, I mean, and sometimes what seems like somebody else's problem, we think, why is that? That's no problem. Why is that a problem? I mean, what's your problem? What's your problem? But you know what? It's their problem, not yours. It's not for you to judge other people's problems. It's for you to help them, to help those problems. But just because it's not a problem for you does not mean it's not a problem for them. It may very well be so. Right? And we have to be careful also, are you going to give them the big apple because you don't want to. Ajahn told me, or you don't actually want to, and so this is a way of like kind of punishing myself.
I think it's the small things that reflects or show us our intention, if we are truly honest with ourselves. Right?
Yeah, there's a naturalness we're trying to invite here, and one of the teachings of bodhicitta is the awakened mind is not something that we create, but it's something that we open to. We open to it by letting go of self. We don't create it by trying to overcome self and, I don't know what, but create something that can say conceal, cover, or suppress self. No, it's more like you let go of self, and what's there? It's not nothing. It's bodhicitta, right? That's the amazing thing. It's not something you actually have to create. It's the nature of the mind. Well, that's one of the faith statements in Mahayana Buddhism, is that the nature of your mind is Buddha mind, is Buddha nature, it's awakened nature. Okay? It's connectedness, emptiness, kindness, compassion. So how do we realize that? Well, what's in the way most of the time? Well, greed, anger, judgment, self, all those, afflicting emotions that we have that are based on, my story. So that's okay, just notice it. See what happens, right? And choose your guides well. Where are we?
20.
21, 2, 3, 5, something like that? 25, yes. This intention to benefit all beings, which does not arise in others even for their own sake, is an extraordinary jewel of the mind, and its birth is an unprecedented wonder. If merely a benevolent intention excels venerating the Buddhas, then what need to mention striving to make all beings without exception happy? Okay, and the last two verses of the first chapter are basically saying, this is such a wonderful thing. Like, this is such an amazing thing. It's so amazing that most people don't even have the intention to save others for themselves. That's what that second line is, which does not arise in others even for their own sake. The intention to benefit all other beings. A lot of people don't even have it. I mean, they have their own, selfish thoughts, but the selfish thought is not the same as like a thought to benefit yourself. Because the true benefit of yourself, what is really going to help yourself? What is really going to help you? What's going to help you end suffering? Your own suffering. That's like a big question. $1 million question. What's going to help you end your suffering? What is really going to help you end your suffering? So all the ideas we're brought up with thinking that that's going to make us happy, most of the time we found through experience, bittersweet experience, that it lasted for a little bit but then passed. It didn't mean it didn't make us happy. It just meant that the happiness was really temporary, right? Until, the kind of cause of it changed or ended, or other conditions happened, change happened. So it's not to say that all of everything we're taught that will make us happy is wrong. It's just limited, right? It's impermanent. So where do we find a lasting happiness? What will give us lasting happiness? You have to figure that out. So here we see, merely a benevolent intention excels venerating all the Buddhas. A benevolent, to help, kindness, a kind intention. A kind intention is greater than all the bows to the Buddha and all the flowers you can give and all the donations and everything. There's this old story where Bodhidharma, the founder of Zen, met the Emperor of China, and the Emperor of China, who invited him, had built so many temples and so many monasteries and supported so many thousands of Sangha, and he asked Bodhidharma, what merit is there, with everything I've done? Because in the Buddhist world there's this idea that you do something and you kind of get points for it, right? So he had, he was expecting that he was going, straight elevator to heaven. And Bodhidharma said, no merit at all. Nothing. Nada. And the emperor was very disappointed and kind of like upset, to say it lightly. And so, who's talking to me? He said, he said, I don't know. Bodhidharma said, I don't know. Well, before that he said, like, what, tell me the essence of the teachings. And he said, nothing holy. But the point there was that we can be doing some of these practices thinking that, like, it'll be good for me. It'll be good for me in some way. Okay? And that's like it can be a good start. It can be good for you. You're one of the sentient beings, But in the end, it's not going to go far, right? Because you're not going to experience immediate benefit from the good that you do. In fact, sometimes it seems like you're just not appreciated. Right? Or that the others don't actually want your help. Or that it's not helping. What you thought would help actually doesn't help. What then? You do what you can and you have to let go of results. You're not in charge of the results. You're in charge of the intention. So here what we're trying to cultivate is the intention. And he said here, if merely a kind of benevolent intention is greater than, all this sort of devotion to the Buddhas, right? Then why do we even need to mention trying to make all beings happy? So what we're working on here is strengthening that intention.
Question about intention. How can you tell when it's, like you guys kind of touched on it, how can you tell when it's a good intention and you're not just like forcing yourself to do something good?
Well, you just repeat it over and over again until it spontaneously arises. We're conditioning the mind. It's going to be mixed with selfishness for a long time because we have been trained in self-centeredness until today, right? And that the Sangha of our society is reinforcing selfishness. The Sangha of the Buddha is reinforcing, generosity. Okay, so those two are not necessarily going to support each other. Meaning, you're gonna work on your benevolent, your kind, your compassionate intentions, and letting go of selfishness. Then you're going to step out in the world, and then you have all these, all the support for selfishness again, and it's going to continue for the rest of your life. There's never going to be, there will be these rare moments of pure intention. But as he said, it's like a lightning flash in the sky. It disappears then. Does that mean I can't develop, this intention? No, it means you're going to develop it in a more self-conscious way. So yeah, it will seem sometimes maybe not so spontaneous. Right? It may not even seem natural because what is natural for us right now is pretty selfish. That's natural right now. So yeah, we have to make some effort to kind of experience that conflict, but what's the conflict about? It's like I'm rubbing against the patterns of myself. Okay, that's what you're going to have to experience and recognize that that's your path.
And also, like, when you do something, like for me, when I do something good for others, I feel good. So is that selfish? It's like, how can you tell?
Yeah, look, feeling good,
Like,
feeling good from benefiting others. Dalai Lama was asked that once. Like, isn't it selfish to, if you experience happiness from helping others, isn't that then like kind of concealed selfishness? Well, what should you feel? Bad about it? It actually is kind of showing that kindness is natural. If it actually gives you happiness, then kindness is the right way to be. As if naturally then we started to feel jealous or angry or resentful, then maybe we're doing something wrong. But if you feel happy because someone else is happy, seems to me actually to verify, to to show the correctness of that way, right? So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
And some studies even show that it's kind of hardwired into your brain. That's the way you respond to it without, like I don't know if you can force yourself not to enjoy it, or maybe you can train yourself, but it's not the natural thing.
Yeah. I've read some research done with like toddlers and young children that they offer each other things naturally, and that kind of breaks down that idea that children are naturally selfish. Well, no, they're not. They're naturally themselves. So yeah, I would kind of just enjoy the feeling and accept when it passes. It will. Lightning in the sky. Let's do it. This chapter is an interesting one, and actually because we're short on time, I'm going to read the whole thing just straight through, because it's kind of got one point to it. It's got one point to it. And the point is this. Let's get through it and see. 34. Leaving all, I must depart alone. But through not having understood this, I committed various kinds of evil for the sake of my friends and foes. My foes will become nothing. My friends will become nothing. I too will become nothing. Likewise, all will become nothing. Just like a dream experience. Whatever things I enjoy will become a memory. Whatever has passed will not be seen again. Thereby, through not having realized that I shall suddenly vanish, I committed so much evil, out of ignorance, lust, and hate. Therefore, I now seek refuge in the Buddhas who protect the world, who strive to shelter all that lives, and with great strength eradicate all fear. Thanks. Likewise, I purely seek refuge in the Dharma they have realized, that clears away the fears of cyclic existence, and also in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. It is inappropriate to enjoy myself, thinking that today alone I shall not die, for inevitably the time will come when I shall become nothing. Whatever has been done by me through ignorance and unknowing, be it the breaking of a vow, or a deed by nature wrong, I humbly confess it all, in the presence of the protectors, with folded hands, prostrating myself again, my mind terrified by the misery caused by it. I beseech all the guides of the world to please accept my evils and wrongs. Since these are not good, in the future I shall do them no more. Plain and simple, right? Plain and simple. You're going to die, okay? It's going to happen. There is simply no question there. Therefore, committing any sort of harm is a huge mistake, because it's not going to stop you from dying. It's not going to benefit you at all. And your friends and foes, the friends you thought it benefited and the foes you thought it harmed, are also all going to be gone. So when everything is gone, was it worth it? Was it worth causing harm when everything is gone? You and the people you helped and the people you harmed? When that's all gone, what's left? What a waste of energy. But realizing, though, the harm that was caused, this whole chapter is consistent with bodhicitta. How? It's saying there's no word of guilt here. There's acknowledgement and moving on. Right? There's moving on. So I recognize what's happened. I confess and I acknowledge I've made huge mistakes. I've caused a lot of harm in the past. By acknowledging that, I can then step forward. I can go forth. Right? And that is really the essence of this chapter, is by saying, I admit it, and now let's move on. Okay? It's time to stop doing that, and I vow to stop doing that by taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So that's what I'm doing. That's what this chapter is doing. It's saying, I'm not living in la la land. I have no illusions that I'm just, now I have this intention and I'm all angelic. No way. My past is riddled with mistakes and harm. I acknowledge that, and I'm going to keep going. The last line is the key one here. In the future I shall do them no more. But only by fully acknowledging it. I cultivate the intention, the bodhicitta, again and again. I have no illusions of my, difficult past, but I will not be chained by it, because its intention will allow me to proceed, to go forth. Right? So chapter 2 is our reality check. It's saying, you're not running away from anything. You're fully acknowledging it, and you're cultivating something even greater. Right? So go forth, and you won't do it again. How? Because you are strengthening this intention to not cause harm.
No room for apology?
Well, I think that's up to you. That's up to you. That's the going forth. Saying, when you are not going to repeat it, what is the process then? Well, there's a confession here. Okay? There's the vow not to repeat it. There's taking refuge. But then what type of activities you actually choose to do? So I think this text is not actually proscribing the specific activities. Is it appropriate in this situation with this person to go and address it, or is it best just to say, I'm not going to do this again? Right? So I think that the particular action of remedying and not repeating is then unique to the situation, the individual, the event. So then that is, maybe it is, if you're going to continue a relationship with this person and you need to address it, then that's the action, that's the going forth that you need to do. That's the difference between the, being inspired and then, actually engaging it. So, I think that it's not written here about the specifics intentionally, because the specifics are changing rapidly. Like, I mean, they're very different. So maybe that's what you need to do, and maybe not. But your bodhicitta and your refuge will clarify for you yes or no. I mean, the action. So this is something else that we need to take seriously in terms of awakening bodhicitta, awakened mind, is that trust that in your intuitive wisdom, your intuitive intelligence. Did I talk about that last week? That sense of, what Pema Chodron talked about, the nature of the mind had this intuitive intelligence, it had this compassion, and it had this openness and curiosity. So trusting that first nature of the mind where, I have the wisdom actually to know what to do and when. So here, when you have that, when the background is bodhicitta and that vow to really be a benefit, then you can trust, okay, well now I'm ready and I will know what to do when. So if he told us specifically, then it would be a bit too, prescriptive, I'm trying to say. Like he would be too directive. This text is trying to purify certain intentions in our mind so that then we can apply it. Right? That's my feeling here. That's my feeling. Okay.
Daniel, would you say that this chapter emphasizes more kind of the secular view of like dying, like more annihilation? It sounds like I'm going to nothing, and it doesn't like talk about the consequences of the things that you're doing. I don't know if it's helpful for this kind of reflection, but
yeah, I think the whole text of this guide, the Bodhisattva Way of Life, is actually very worldly, and refreshingly so. It doesn't escape to, this is Indian, which is kind of like a big departure for that time specifically. Indian Buddhism was known to be very philosophical and very much into rebirth and all that, right? So here, there's, it's not even mentioned about other lives, not even mentioned. So we'll see in future chapters, but generally it's about changing your mind now, in this life. And so, when it's saying here, we're going to die, that's a very, you could almost say modern Buddhist thought. You're gonna, time's running out, so don't wait. Don't wait. Are you gonna have another chance? That's kind of speculation, isn't it? What you do know is you have this chance. So it's pretty down to earth. That's actually why I really appreciate this text. And we will see, though, it's not just mundane. There is, in fact, in the next chapter that we won't get to tonight, chapter 3, but maybe you want to read it on your own, you can. It's very poetic. There's a beautiful poem, and it is very inspiring. There's a lot of poetry in this text, and it's very inspiring, the images of, may I be a nurse and doctor in a boat and a bridge, may I, help others in so many ways to inspire us that, it's always changing. And that's also like where the question is, well, maybe I should address it directly. Well, if that's what's needed, but if what's needed is not addressing it directly, then that's also what's needed. Your question is your intention correct? Are you addressing it with this person because you need to address it, or they need you to address it? What's their intention here? So if we clarify our intentions, then I think we'll know what to do. But that's the bodhicitta practice. So I would like to actually with you next week, if we could do chapter 3, maybe I'll bring a bit of chapter 9 and 10. Because I'll tell you what's in between. Each chapter after the first 3 chapters is going through one of what's called the 6 paramitas. He goes through the paramitas, which is like generosity, giving dana, and patience, and morality, virtue, moral living, and meditation, mindfulness, and energy, motivation, and wisdom. Those paramitas, which are called these wonderful, great qualities, those are the qualities of a bodhisattva. What is a bodhisattva like? They have all of those 6 qualities highly developed. I'm not going to go through the text is quite long, actually. It's like about 120 pages, so I'm not going to go through that. Just going to go through this part and the last chapter a little bit, and then in future, if I'm alive, in future meetings, I think the 6 paramitas would be a good kind of series to do, actually, because they are very profound. And if you want to know what an enlightened person behaves like, then it's the 6 paramitas. So that's a good thing to look at, isn't it?
We do it 10.
Yeah, I know.
We extended.
I know, there's the extended one. They need more help.
Crash course.
Well, they're 10 because they need more help. So, yeah. Yeah, there are some things where he compares with the Torah, but I didn't include it. Didn't want to offend anyone. So, but it's, you know what? Get the help where you can. And then pass it on. Pass it on. So, is there anyone else who wants to say anything?
I'm still trying to understand the difference between being selfish and being compassionate with myself. So there is it's very hard to differentiate between the two. To be clear about that.
Yeah, it is confusing. What's the difference between being selfish and being compassionate with myself? Well, the intention can seem similar, perhaps, but the effect usually is not the same. When I serve myself, the effect after a while is back to suffering. Right? If it's based on selfishness. If it's based on compassion, then suffering usually, lessens, becomes less. Right? I'm not doing anything about suffering when I am, serving myself in a selfish way. Right? It may give me a bit of excitement, joy, and pleasure, but then I end up feeling pretty much just as bad. Whereas from compassion, my state of mind starts to shift a little bit. So you'll notice this shift and more ease. There's greater ease with compassion. And there's more tension and anxiety with selfishness. Why is there anxiety with selfishness even when it's about joy? Because deep inside me I know it's not going to last, so I want to hold on to it. There's attachment there with selfishness. There's letting go with compassion. So notice inside yourself, are you feeling a sense of like there's a bit of attachment? Or is there a greater inner freedom? You can just feel and kind of notice your state of mind, right? Even if it's happy, you can take it. So yeah, that's where we have to relate it to our meditation practice as well. You take time, you just kind of check in. What is my state of being right now? Am I excited and attached, or am I excited and kind of more free? Right? Am I able to let go, even if this thing I want will pass? Or am I kind of wanting it to last? So that's, I think, a kind of inner checking we do.
But when you are talking, I'm just thinking that probably what would help me in this thinking that just putting myself out. Like, if my action is compassionate with another person, then this is compassionate with myself. It's less, it's a self-centered thing.
Yeah, look, if you're helping someone else, you'll be helped by, you'll be helped naturally, right? Because of that thing, that natural sympathy we have. But if you're only helping yourself, they won't naturally be helped. So, you know, if you want to help yourself, help others. It's actually really a pretty basic equation. Just naturally it happens. But yeah, you'll know what to do.